We know your home appliances are essential, and if you need a new one, you need it fast. Many products are in short supply due to COVID, but we're member owners of a huge regional appliance warehouse right here in New England, so we can often get the appliances you need quickly and deliver them faster than our competition. If products are out of stock, our knowledgeable team will recommend the best plan for you. Plus, we have expert delivery and installation. You won't find that in a national chain. Did you know your local appliance retailer is the best place to buy your new KitchenAid suite? Click here to find the dealer closest to you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning for another KitchenAid sponsored webinar about kitchen design. Today we have three designers with us, Donna Venegas, Stacy Claremondo, and Alina Wohlhart. I'll give you a better introduction about their background when we meet them. And now, first, I'd like to hear a word from KitchenAid.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Maggie Woodall, and I'm sales manager for Whirlpool Corporation, supporting the New England chapter. I'm really excited to be able to partner with both the Boston Globe and the New England Appliance Group to talk and learn about the 2022 insights and trends in the kitchen. And just really excited to hear from the panel and what they have to say today. If you as consumers or you have consumers in your life, really encourage you to go out to your local dealer to implement some of these insights and trends that you're going to learn about today, and ask your local dealer about KitchenAid or Whirlpool family of products. Thank you. Have a great day.
Great. Thank you, Maggie. So we're going to get started. We're going to start with Donna first. I just want to remind everybody that after we're through with all three portions, that we'll have time for Q&A, and you can ask questions anytime in the Q&A tool at the bottom of your screen. So let's get started with Donna Venegas. Let me just tell you a little bit about her. She has a showroom in the South End, Venegas and Company. She specializes in unique custom cabinetry that she and her team, all of whom have interior design degrees, developed with their cabinet makers. Interior designers, architects, builders consult her. They bring her onto projects because she is the cabinet and kitchen lady. And as Alina actually put it, that designers can't necessarily keep up on every single aspect of kitchen design. So it's great to have a specialist like Donna there. And she does cabinetry really beyond the kitchen too. And Donna, I know that especially now after or during COVID and after COVID, the kitchen is sort of making its way through the house, and everybody has home bars and all sorts of kitchen-like conveniences all over, right?
Yeah, absolutely. First, thanks so much for having me. I'm happy to be here to talk about my favorite topic, kitchen. But Marnie, you're right. I mean, what we've seen just in the past year or two is this focus back onto the home. And the functions that come with the kitchen, cooking, storing of foods, entertaining, has kind of spread out a little bit into other areas of the home. And we have a big call for entertainment bars to be able to entertain a little bit easier at home, additional refrigeration, because people who once were living elsewhere have now come and flocked back to the home. So there's a lot of interesting changes that are going on right now.
Right. The home bar is definitely like the COVID era must have. But I understand from you that coffee is like a huge thing in the kitchen now. Not that coffee was never not important, but there's been a lot of things happening with coffee. We can look at the first slide where we put together some kitchens that really show how coffee is being integrated.
Yeah, absolutely. So like what I say is like Starbucks, watch out. Everybody seems to be wanting to, bring out their inner barista. And what we're seeing so much more than we had in the past was a call for integrated coffee. So the slide that you're showing here, there's so many things about it that I love, but on the right-hand side is an integrated built-in coffee system. So you can make cappuccinos, a flat white, mochaccino, froth milk. You can do everything. So you
make hot chocolate.
Absolutely, you can make hot chocolate. The slide in the center shows, there is another brand of a coffee system. So now what we're seeing is a lot of the appliance brands are coming to market. So there's a lot of competition in the way of coffee. So if you haven't thought about how to integrate that into your kitchen, maybe you should give it a thought.
Great. Okay. Yeah, it looks like these people really gave it a lot of thought. We have another slide that shows sort of, when I think coffee, I think like it's the appliance garage with the door that sort of comes up. But you were talking about how even if you're not having the fancy integrated system, the old-fashioned appliance garage has evolved, and there's much better options for cabinetry.
Right. I mean, when I think of kitchens, right, and we always think about the home as sanctuary, right? The home as a reflection of the people who live in it. And we think of ease and convenience. So now what we're seeing a call for more than ever is, that spot of the kitchen that seems to get the most amount of use. Let's call it like the breakfast area, right? It often houses a toaster oven, a juicer, coffee system. These are things that we're using multiple times a day, depending if there's people who get up at different times. So those areas can tend to get messy. So what we've kind of come up with is we've challenged ourselves to figure out different ways of automatically concealing this when it's not in use. So the slide on the right illustrates sort of a coffee bar area that the client also uses at night for wine and entertaining. It shows it with the panel up, and you see the countertop and all sort of the inner workings. The middle slide shows that very same installation with the panel down. So in one fell swoop, cover up that mess, and all that you see are the decorative items up top on the decorative shelves. And this picture that I included on the left, this is a progress shot of a project that we haven't yet completed, but I loved how the designer in my studio, her name is Michelle, I love how she designed this bar in this beautiful metallic to sort of protrude out, and it integrates the LED lighting, and it the flooring, which is concealed here, is actually a recycled leather. So this person really kind of made this like coffee as ceremony sort of, installation. So I'll have to show you that when it's done, but that's why I want to include that progress shot for now.
I can't wait to see it. So I've been talking to a lot of real estate agents. I have another story for the Globe. So I've talked to about 10 this month, and big is back, not just houses, but, kitchens too, right? So the square footage in homes is growing, and that includes bigger kitchens. Are you finding that?
It does. And the one thing that we really try to be sensitive to is this thing I call kitchen sprawl, where, the kitchen is not appropriately, proportioned for the rest of the floor. So what we try and do is create, auxiliary spaces, maybe just off the kitchen. So instead of trying to pack everything in, maybe we'll add a wet bar adjacent to the kitchen table. And that's someplace where you can get all of the accessories you need to set the table. There might be an additional sink there, a beverage refrigerator. That's another big thing besides coffee is under counter refrigeration. Because they're never seen
drawers or
love them. Yes. I mean, I would say
let's look at the next slide.
Project.
Do you want to look at the next slide? I think it has some of the elements in there. Yeah, it's what we were looking at before, but let's dive in deeper.
Yeah, this one. So I love this kitchen. There's just so much function packed into a very compact space. We designed it as an open plan, knowing that it would be visible when you're in your dining room, when you're in your living room. So we used a very sort of furniture-like finish on it. But what you don't necessarily know is how many appliances are there. So if I worked from left to right, there is a coffee system over a cup warmer, over a wine refrigerator next to an 18-inch dishwasher. And then there's a set of refrigerator drawers all the way on the right. And above that is a speed/steam oven with a vacuum sealer beneath it. So it's kind of like a sous vide setup.
Wow.
And that's in that one small, I think it's not even 10 feet wide.
Okay. And then that workstation sink, that's their main sink, right?
Well, I incorporated two sinks here. So there's a small cleanup sink on the back appliance wall, and I flanked that with a working backsplash, if you will. So we used a powder coated material and created these shelves that are water resistant, and the client can use it for storing any sort of accessories they need at hand. And if you pivot around, the middle slide shows the galley workstation. So another trend that I'm loving, and I don't know that I'd call it a trend, but I would call it like a new way of approaching sinks. So previously, the sink was probably the least useful storage in the entire kitchen, and it was there to rinse. So now sinks are being approached in a different way, where they're growing in size and they're coming with integral accessories that allow you to use the sink area as food prep, food serving, for cleanup. This one has a cooktop immediately to the left.
Oh,
So
wow.
what we often do is we finish off the meal there, and then we can serve it. Right here, you're seeing kind of set up for like either like Sunday's dessert or a yogurt bar sort of thing. All of the fixings are there. But
It's like Chipotle in your own house.
I know. Or even better, I have one client just here in the South End, and she has a 7-foot galley, and she and her husband use it. They're big oyster people. So they have these parties, and she's sent me pictures. It's amazing, like oyster service.
Right. Or champagne.
Or champagne, whatever is your thing. It's
right, exactly.
Whatever. And the nice part too is underneath the sink, the way they've designed it, normally sinks are not useful because there's just plumbing. It takes up the whole cavity. The way the sink is designed, it's all packed to one side. So when you see those drawers beneath that sink, that's all usable space.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're able to like furnish them with dividers and really purpose them. So it becomes useful for storage as well.
Neat. Okay, let's look at the next slide. This is kitchen in West Newton. And just quickly, I just want to quickly, or you can quickly point out another way that you've put storage behind it.
So I had mentioned quickly backsplash storage. So oftentimes people are thinking like, what's a beautiful tile or what's a beautiful material that I can wash the backsplash in? We like to use that space as storage. So I picked this image because this was done really well, where there's a warm brass niche in the backsplash that runs the entire distance. And then we made these integral pieces of hardware to open and close the refrigerators and the pantries that flank this. So it's all in this really beautiful line, but it's all useful.
It's really gorgeous. And it reminds me, I want to look at your kitchen too, because your kitchen has all sorts of brass as well. I would say, metal and metallic accents are definitely trending. So the next slide is of your kitchen, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, I love this. I mean, I could say we've been playing with metals for probably the last 11 years. And just in the last 2 or 3, I love how people have really embraced it. So what you're looking at here is we use brass for the upper cabinets. It's a solid single pan metal that's wrapped around a door, and it has like a hand applied strie, and there's no hardware necessary because the way we built it, you can approach the door from the back. And I also use that same sort of metal, and I inlaid it in the cooktop. So this cooktop is actually built to it's gas cooking. It's not electric, even though it looks so streamlined. And it's built such that you can plow it and it can be planar with your countertops. So it's very quiet. Oftentimes gas cooktops look very, large and, professional grade, but sometimes you don't want that. So here I chose to use this very sort of quiet, streamlined gas cooktop.
I love it. It is
stainless steel.
Yeah, I mean, it's really great. just disappears.
It really does. And these doors on the right here, these are some other door styles that we developed that incorporate brass in different levels because, you know, it's all personal taste. And some might want a bolder statement and some might want just like a subdued, subtle bit. So we play around with styles all the time so that clients have a lot to choose from.
Okay, let's look at the next slide.
Oh, I love this.
It doesn't, yeah, too. It doesn't have to be actual metal. It can, you do all of these like amazing sort of metallic finishes. I mean, to me, it looks like a Venetian plaster type of look almost, at least.
Yeah, doesn't it? It has like a texture. So this is essentially a faux metallic finish that incorporates bits of mica in it. So you get that high and low modeling. And we call this one antique nickel silver. And it was actually inspired by that apparatus light fixture, which has a similar, little bit different, a little bit more blacker metal, but we love mixing metals. So
it's a custom finish that you did for specifically for this client.
Exactly.
Based on that. And then you can do it for other people now too, because you know how to do it.
Yeah, we have, exactly. We have a sample that kind of shows grades of different temperatures, more modeling, less modeling, a little bit more brown, a little more green. So it's nice where a client can really, you know, make this their own, depending on what metals they might have, what light fixtures, what art pieces, the furniture, anything can really inform it. It's not just stainless steel or brass.
And, you know, can we just very quickly touch on the hood? Because that you use, is that a real metal over the hood?
Yes, so what this is a vent insert. So that's the mechanism that has the motor that runs the air and removes the grease and all that out of the house. So what we did was we created this cover to it. So I can't remember the last time I bought a hood, a commercial hood. Usually I buy the insert and then we design.
Right, that's definitely a trend right now. Those metal hoods are by the wayside. We're seeing either decorative or just completely pared down.
Yes, because usually the hood, it's a thing. Either someone wants it to stand out or they don't want to see it at all. So there's hardly ever an in between. So in this case, this is a blackened stainless steel. So it's real stainless steel that we've molded over a frame, and it has this sort of strié, and you can't really appreciate it in the image. It's complementary, but does not match the tower. And that's by design.
All right, great. We're almost out of time, but let's get two more slides. Yeah, two more slides. So the next one, just give me a rundown of cabinet styles. I mean, it's always shaker, 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 but I think right now that the panel of the shaker is sort of receding to the edges a little bit more. I don't know how to describe
it. We're definitely not doing a lot of shaker. And that has somewhat of a traditional or transitional, whatever you want to call it, vibe, but oftentimes clients aren't ready to go to a pure slab. So what we've done is we've just played around with what I call a wrap door. So essentially it's a slab that has a molding around the outside. And these are normally a little bit more narrow in proportion than the traditional styles and rails. And I think it evokes a more modern sensibility. And it's also very simple. Like I have to say that for us, we're doing a lot of adventurous things with the materiality in kitchens, but our door styles are getting more and more and more simple.
Okay, that's good to know. So that's like, I would say, big takeaway, simple profiles, silhouettes, pared down, and exciting finishes. And then just give us the last slide here. You can also, if you don't want it to be super pared down, you can put different inserts in it. Right.
Yeah. So this comes from a lot of experimentation. So what you're looking at all the way on the left, that's a recycled US Army tent wrapped in brass.
That's crazy.
I know, but it made for a really, really gorgeous bar, I have to tell you. And then right next to it is actual slate. So it's a piece of slate that's been sheared down to 1/8 of an inch. And that one is wrapped in
looks like stainless steel. Above that, we have, again, a wrap door, and it has a piece of recycled leather insert in it. It looks really beautiful. It's almost like a little bit of a shagreen. And then to the left, we have one of my favorites, which is banker wire. And we have put, this is a more traditional project. It was on the seacoast of New Hampshire. So we have an inset cabinet. I wish I could point. Inset cabinet. It has like an exposed square hinge. The paint is kind of like down pillow white, and the interior, we put a banker wire, which is a combination of brass and stainless steel and a really fine metal.
Right. And we're seeing that a lot in mudrooms and stuff too, I think. But
oh, definitely. Definitely. And then working our way to the right is just sort of a bleached wood, and then a reeded cabinet, which is something we've been playing around with for a couple of years now, reading in different directions and different thicknesses. And it really made this cabinet just look so elegant.
Oh, it looks gorgeous. And we're going to talk more about reading with Alina at the end too.
Oh, great.
But thank you so much, Donna.
Thanks for having me.
You know everything about cabinetry, so we really appreciate you having the time to come visit with us.
For having me.
Great. So next up, we have Stacy Claramundo from Found Design Studio. Hi, Stacy.
Hi.
Let me give her a little background here. She is an interior architecture, and her firm is an interior architecture and design firm. And Stacy is very much about good design transcending time. She has a studio and a shop in Essex, and she's constantly scouring for vintage finds. So let's jump in. So you've been doing a lot of kitchens also.
Yes, a lot of kitchens. I would say probably maybe in upwards of 80% of our projects right now involve a kitchen in one form or another. So we're doing a lot of them.
And what are you noticing? How are kitchens evolving? I mean, we all know that we're spending more time in the kitchen. And I think probably most of us know that the classic, I mean, there's the classic white kitchen and it's classic, but there's so much more going on now. What are you being drawn to?
So we have a lot of our projects span the style gamut, I guess. And so we do have some kitchens that are, still white and light and airy, but we are finding ourselves, we don't want to do the kind of classic white kitchen. We are trying to pull in just more of the feeling of the home. I think a lot of times kitchens end up feeling very utilitarian and very, they have a job to do. And what we're trying to do, if we are doing more of a white kitchen, we're pulling in some more vintage pieces and more things from the home, making them a little more comfortable and less kitchen-like in a way, less literally kitchen-like. And then we're also kind of on the other side of that span, we are doing some traditional design. Again, things that feel collected over time, things that bring that kitchen into feeling more of a part of your living room or your family room or the rest of the house. Because I think for a long time we've opened the spaces to the other house, but they've stayed feeling really kitchen-like.
Let's look at, first slide is actually an inspiration slide. It's Jenny Kane, a designer. She actually opened a store on Newbury Street. She's sort of a lifestyle designer. It's a new store. And she also has this new book. And I know that you had mentioned that you're very drawn to this aesthetic. So I thought we'd throw it up there and you could give us, what is it that enamors you?
So I think this book has been a big piece of inspiration for me and just other designs along this line, because, it's still a light and airy feel and people looking for that light, airy feel, but it's incorporating vintage pieces. Jenny Kane uses a lot lately in her, in her own home, which her home I think is sort of that bottom left picture there. Vintage tables, vintage pieces of upholstery, and recovering them in some beautiful natural linens, not using polyesters and synthetic materials and things like that, but really focusing on kind of some of the classics and some of those classic feels in a different way.
The next slide is sort of a collage, or it's a little collage of just a little bit of your work that sort of reflects that airy aesthetic. And these are pieces, parts of kitchens that are a little bit older, right?
Yeah, so these are probably at least 5+ year old spaces, but they were kind of that beginning of warming things up a little bit. I think the kitchen in the middle, I think that's a good example of, that's a breakfast area nook with actually a pretty big table. But we created a nice cozy place to sit in the kitchen. A lot of people really want to hang out and be in the kitchen with the person that's cooking, and we've decorated it or designed it in a way that it feels like it could easily be a part of the living room as well. And then the photo on the right, that was a condo in Cambridge. It was a pre-war condo, needed a renovation, but we didn't want to take away the style of the building and the true aesthetic of the rest of the apartment. So and the client had this amazing collection of pottery, vintage pottery that she's collected, newer pottery. So we created this little area of shelving so that she could display that. And again, it's bringing other pieces of the home or other things that are important to you into the kitchen to really make it feel lived in and loved, and not just like a place that you're cooking a meal and leaving.
Great. Let's look at the next slide. We have a lot, so let's I guess we'll have to go through them quickly, but this is just I think really sort of sums up your aesthetic, right?
Yeah, I love vintage. I love both vintage, but I also like really like small maker, newer things as well. So the image on the right is an image of the shop before the new shop that we're opening this spring. And there's some pottery in there made by an artisan out in California, but just really authentic, good quality, things that you'll have for years and years and years. And then the slides kind of in the middle, that's a house up in Maine. That's a house that we go to every summer, and it's collected. It's just been collected over time. And I love that authentic feel. I loved things that are lived in, and I don't know, just give a feeling of home, of home. It doesn't have to be perfect all the time.
Which brings me to this next project that we've talked about a lot. I've written about it a couple of times. Yes. And what I love about this is that it's in the next slide, a kitchen that you designed in an old house in Beverly, and they had a kitchen that was kind of newish, and they really wanted a more humble feel. So even though you gutted this, it looks like it's been there for a long time. To give us a couple of rundown tips on why that's the case. How did you do that?
Sure. So the kitchen was a little chopped up before. Kind of half of it was kitchen space and half of it was actually dedicated to a little breakfast table nook area, which was great. But they have a table adjacent to this anyway, so it was sort of it was unnecessary, and they really needed more storage. But I wanted it to feel still like it belonged to the home. We didn't want it to feel like we had just taken this space and created this brand new thing that didn't jive with the rest of the home, which is really quite sweet. And so on the right-hand side of the kitchen, you'll just see a wall of cabinetry, and that really became their pantry space. There's a ton of storage in there with rollouts and shelves for food and Tupperware and all of those things. It's easily accessible because they're behind doors and on rollouts. And it really takes all of that, what we would normally put in all of our upper cabinetry, and it puts it over to one side of the kitchen. And what that does is it really frees up, it frees up the walls in the kitchen to feel, again, more like it's part of the rest of the house. So we added a little cute little shelf over on the left-hand side that we could put cookbooks on, or paintings, or what have you.
And again, you have the pared down hood, so that disappears, and the beautiful handmade Zalige tile.
And just incorporating warm, friendly materials, classic materials. Zalige is hundreds and hundreds of years old, and it's sort of come back now. And I think a lot of people are using it, and they're using it in this slightly different way. And it's on the backsplash of a kitchen. We have
Oh, sorry. I was just saying.
No, go ahead.
About the color and the cabinetry style and the color. This sort of moodier colors you talked a lot about.
Yeah, I love moodier colors. I love colors with a little bit more grit to them, and a little more depth as well. So this color for me, really, they have a beautiful yard. They have beautiful gardens. You can kind of see through the windows some junipers that are out there. And so we really wanted to have a warmth to this kitchen. So that's why we went with a green, warmer tone, and we incorporated wood and soapstone and just some really traditional materials, but in a way that I think feels very current, but I also think it's going to stand the test of time, and they're going to love this kitchen for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. I know I would. Speaking of which, that's sort of a good transition to the next slide, which will be super fast on terracotta. That the bathroom on the left is that same house, and I had said, like, when we were talking about it, oh, terracotta tiles is kind of funny. It reminds me of a child of the 70s, of these like super 70s kind of thing. But it's everywhere now. And you had some really good points about that. Just give me like a sentence on like why it works.
I think it works because, again, it's a classic material. So we use a classic material, and we put it in perhaps an unexpected place, and it becomes interesting. But I also think it'll stand the test of time because it's a classic material.
And the fact that it's used outdoors too. And I had found this picture I think it's in England, where you can see it runs right through their living room like kitchen out to their patio.
Yeah, and it is, and so it makes it durable as well. So we always want to be thinking about durability as we're designing these spaces like kitchens and bathrooms.
All right, total change of gear. You're doing a house, next slide, in Concord. It's a noted mid-century modern house. And you had a good point about this, that even though it's going to look incredibly different, but the materials at the end of the day are similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I think that's, that's really important to me. We use a lot of the same materials all the time. We use oak, we use walnut, we use terracotta, we use natural stones, limestones and marbles and things like that. And really it's what's that?
Lacquered brass.
And unlacquered brass. And we mix these things, and I really think it's all about how you mix them and how you use them and how you apply them. It can be done in so many different ways, but I love to go back to, again, the classic materials, and we just apply them in different ways, and we get a totally different feel and a totally different effect. And I think both stand the test of time. This is, very mid-century modern. The other one is a little more English cottagey, but we're reusing a lot of, quite frankly, the same materials here, and we're achieving a very different look.
All right, one last project that's in progress. These are in progress shots, quite the house on the water in Beverly Farms. And this really illustrates that idea of kitchens becoming more living room like, more living spaces, not just being used as living spaces, but really looking a little bit more like a living space.
Right. And I think this goes back to kind of that first inspiration board that Jenny Kane, just that light, bright, airy. This is a case where the kitchen is very connected. It's a large room on the first floor that's really the gathering space. And although, we had to design it's a decent sized kitchen, and it's open to everything in the house. And we really wanted to keep it not as kitcheny. So we chose one, the range wall is really the focal wall. The range itself, we chose a darker color. And so that's sort of eye catching, and the islands we've done in a really beautiful stained oak with a texture that we added to the oak to give it a furniture-like feel. We lifted the cabinetry off the floor and gave it legs. And so, I think Donna had referenced a furniture-like feel in some of her projects as well. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to not make it feel like we've got all of this upper cabinetry, and the perimeter of this kitchen is actually white. And it doesn't feel like your everyday white kitchen.
Right.
But
so for everybody out there who's asking, can I still do a white kitchen? You can.
yes.
You totally can. But take these tips about incorporating a little bit of texture and age too.
Yeah, and throw up, make sure you have a place to put a beautiful painting up, or that pottery that you love, or those things that really make it feel like yours.
Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you.
All right, Alina, let's motor through our million slides. Alina Woolhart, if hopefully she's coming up, launched Wolf and Sheep Design in 2015 after working on lots of high-profile commercial projects at Elkis Manfredi. And in addition to all her work with homeowners, she's designed public spaces and units in condos, new developments, and Boston's beloved flower bakeries. Alina's aesthetic is influenced by her upbringing in Copenhagen and Tokyo. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course, can't have Kitchen Trends without you in the picture. So let's start with stone, because we haven't talked that much about stone. I know stone is being used as a statement. Let's talk about it a little bit. And if we want, since we have so many slides, let's throw the first slide up there.
Okay. Yeah, so stones, I think in general, there's obviously so many different types of stone out there, and there's also quartz out there, which is like a man-made stone that is, impenetrable. You can use bleach on it, which has been really popular for a few years. And I think slowly there's a trend going back to using natural stone and creating a high impact on your kitchen with the stone that you select. So, as designers, I feel like it's our job to educate our clients. So we have to tell them what kind of stones, perhaps fit their lifestyle and their family.
Right. So a lot of people don't want the staining and the etching.
Right. And they want to not have to think about it. And if that's the case, definitely quartz is the answer. But, I think, and the quartz has come such a long way from, 5 years ago even. And there's so many different types of quartz out there. But I think what makes natural stone unique is not every single slab of stone is pretty much different. And that can become what differentiates your kitchen from everyone else's. So in the image on the left, on the back, we use two different types of stone here. The black stone that you see is a granite, and we like leathered that. So there's also like different types of finish that you can apply on stones. There's like polished and honed. That's probably like what everyone knows more of. There's also leathering, which I love. That has this like really nice like feeling. It's honed. It like has almost like a waxy feel to it. And so that black stone is granite, which is very durable and can be used in a kitchen without too much maintenance. The stone on the island that you see is real marble, which does stain, it does etch. And, you know, I think, I love that. Like, I think, you know, let your stone age and let your stone stain. And like, the more stain you have, you know, it just brings in a little more character. But it's definitely our job as designers to educate and like set clients' expectations so that, you know, they're not kicking and screaming.
Right. I know Stacy. Yeah,
Once.
I mean, Stacy talked a lot about just loving the age and the character and the patina too. I mean, I think a lot of designers are gonna tell you that it just makes it more beautiful. Like, not everything has to be perfect.
Yeah, and like it goes back to like what Stacy was saying, like with, you know, embracing sort of like the vintage and like the old. And you know, if you go to a house in the countryside in England that's been there for like hundreds of years, like a lot of times they still have the same stone and it looks messed up, but you know, there's some charm to that.
Right. Let's take a super quick look at slide 2. This is just showing stone and metallics in different applications, right?
So like I haven't really seen this in the States so much yet, but like I know in Europe, like there's like different types of like where you can like veneer. Donna, I think briefly mentioned, like they take a really thin slice of stone and use it as cabinet fronts. You know, I've seen some of it like in person at like showrooms. I mean, they work beautifully. Like it doesn't have like any crazy like heavy feeling to them. But this is also another way, you know, like that you can like differentiate your kitchen. I'm sure.
I mean, we all see it on Instagram so much, especially.
Yeah, you know,
such an impact.
Price point will probably go up a little bit.
Impact comes with price. All right, next slide. Something that we are seeing more of here, and just on this quickly, you were doing it in commercial applications years ago, which is the ribbed or the slatted wood.
Yes. So I definitely think that we're seeing a lot of like ribbed wood, slatted wood, used recently, like in more like residential projects. You know, flower, we did that one like 6 years ago. And then the image on the left is a lobby space that we did in Downtown Crossing, and that was probably opened in 19. So we've been, you know, working on that.
And then I have a picture in the next slide of a bathroom that you did more recently, which really, even though it's a bathroom, I think it would translate into a stunning kitchen. And I think it sort of has all those elements that you're talking about: the rough stone, the slatted wood, the dark colors.
Yes. And like, you know, if you look at this bathroom, we're basically using 3 different types of material. That's it. And I think like you can achieve like high impact and like beautiful design with very minimal materials. So here you see like a walnut slatted wood with the slate slab. That's the platform of the tub. And then we're using a slate stone for the wall tile and the floor tile, which had a leathered finish. And then actually the vanity that you don't see was like concrete. So, you know, we're mindful of textures a lot of times. Like if we're simplifying the palette, we want to make sure like there's a lot of different textures involved.
All right, let's look at the next slide, which is something that you did
Yeah.
also recently where you use it, you do bring into the kitchen, the reeded wood and the curve.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
I don't know if people can tell out there, but that base is a tambour, right?
right. So the island that you see in the walnut finish is a tambour, which is like this ribbed wood material. And, so this is a residential building, a multi-unit building that we're doing in Bay Village. It's already under agreement after like one day, by the
I
way.
saw that.
Yeah.
I totally would have.
And, the benefit, so like to answer some people's questions about white kitchen, this is a white kitchen on the
Yes,
wall.
it is.
But you can, create a little bit of more personality and a little differentiation by doing something else on the island. So in this case, we have the cabinets on the sink side is actually white as well. We're just wrapping the sides in the walnut tambour. So we're almost making it look like a piece of furniture. And the benefit of doing ribbed wood is we are not limited to doing like hard edges. So we can actually curve the edges.
Right. Now curves are a big trend.
I think, yes, like what we're going to be seeing more. And I think it sort of comes hand to hand because doing the ribbing, it opens a little more possibilities that we can play around with.
Great. So, and the next one, we don't need to talk about it, but the next slide, just to show you, these are kitchens in Australia and New Zealand, and they've been doing this for a couple of years now, these ribbed wood curves.
Right. And then, just also with the stone, like there's, a lot you can do by curving the stone.
Oh, right. Right.
Yeah.
And then if you're not redoing your kitchen, I just thought we'd flash onto this slide super quickly. The next slide, which shows, tables, you could do it in a dining table, and these are at all different price points.
Yeah. So like a lot of like instances where your dining table is like adjacent to your kitchen, or like, you have one large open floor plan where the kitchen's sort of integrated into your living and dining space. One way to like, less expensive way to bring in more of this trend that we're seeing without redoing your kitchen is like bringing like a curved dining table or kitchen table like these.
All right, now go to the next slide, slide 8, which just briefly, another dark space. I know you love these dark, moody spaces. And again, this is something you did. This opened in 2018. So
yeah, I mean, as you can tell, I have a black wall behind me. So I love anything dark. And so I think I'm constantly like, telling my clients, like, come to the dark side. It's going to be great. Don't be scared. And, they respond pretty well.
Let's see the next slide. You have a couple of people that you've been able to convince. This is more blues, but it's sort of, one is the blue and the white, but now you have the more recent one that on the right, which is more recent, and it's getting a little bit darker.
Right. And so like the picture on the right is a house we're doing or pretty much done in the Berkshires. And we have black oak stained wood on the higher cabinets. And then in the lower cabinets, like of the island and by the window is like almost like a teal painted cabinets. And then the one on the left, we actually did with Donna. The client actually wanted a white kitchen. And I was like, how about blue?
All right. And green, people are doing green. Oh, actually the next one's from Gloucester. Let's look at the next slide. That's dark.
Yes. Yeah. And this is a beach house or like a house like right on the water. This is another kitchen we did with Donna. This client has a place in Boston who's like, that's like really posh. And this is like her, summer, like weekend getaway house. And she wanted something that was casual and like a little more, felt like it was like worn in. So like the dark wood, cabinet fronts, like I think, it has this really nice cerused finish on it that makes it feel like it's a little, aged. We actually did the Zalige tile, like the white Zalige tile that Stacy talked about earlier. And then the floor in here is like bluestone, which is a Belgian bluestone, which has a really nice, beautiful finish with like, it's like honed and it has like ribbed, like jagged edges. So it feels like it's been there forever. And the countertops are soapstone, and we did the entire sink in the soapstone as well.
Oh, nice. Right. And so the
And
soap,
so like,
what Stacy used on the back perimeter of that Beverly kitchen. So we're seeing a lot of soapstone. I think.
Right. And like, I think this sort of is a good example of like, even though you have a beach house, you know, this client didn't want your typical nautical feeling. You know, she didn't want the blues and the whites and all that. So, you know, like I loved being able to do something, you know, dark in like a summer home.
Right. And speaking of summer homes, you got a house in the Cape and you went green with yours.
I did.
Next
So
slide.
my child.
A little bit of a mess. These are in progress projects. And her adorable child.
Sorry, that was like the only picture I could find. But yeah, like we bought the house. We ended up having to do all the bathrooms. So, you know I want to replace my kitchen in like a year with Donna, of course. Can't wait. So excited. But in the meantime, like just to change, and then the countertops here was like a brown, like granite, and I just needed like a quick facelift. So we ended up painting the cabinets in like a nice, what I think it's called alligator alley green.
Yeah, alligator alley green. And then in Charlestown, you did a facelift for people with what new counter, you painted their white cabinets and different hunter green, Benjamin Moore hunter green.
Right. And then here, like, you know, they're gutting basically everything else in the house. So they also wanted to wait on the kitchen. We're ripping out the checkered floor. It was vinyl. So that's going. But this house is, the quality is like amazing. Like everything is like a great quality, like woodwork. So we didn't necessarily want to rip out the cabinets. And so we just, you know, painted it this darker green, changed the flooring to wood. We kept the black stone, but we were able to take off the small stone backsplash and we added a green porcelain tile.
Great. And we don't really, I want to be able to have time for Q&A, but so we don't really have time to talk about the next two slides, but if you can just put it up, lighting, you say, change your lighting if you can't do anything else.
Yeah.
And
yeah, like you can do, you know, oversized pendants, asymmetrical lighting. You know, you can play around with like placement of the lights to make it a little more unique. So like even, you know, the kitchen on the right, like the kitchen was already done when we came into the picture. And this is like your typical like white shaker style, like kitchen. But we did like these oversized pendants over the island.
Great. And then can we just see the last slide, and then we don't need to talk about it, but just lots of different things you can do with lights.
Right.
So thank you. I know we're running a few minutes over, but we did have a couple of questions. Hey, everybody. I think one of the questions that came up a bunch is are white cabinets passé and blue and green is popular? Will they look dated? And I think we've answered that. If anybody else wants to chime in, yay or nay on white?
Yeah, I think you can use it. Like you can definitely use white. It's just, you know, how do you make it more personal? Like Stacy was saying too.
Yeah. And somebody asked about vinyl floors. I think we answered that too. Alina said no. Stacy, you said no way.
No.
No. But leather's okay, right, Donna?
Oh, absolutely.
And maybe one more question. cabinet styles? If you had to do your, when we can just go around, like if you have to redo your kitchen and you could pick a cabinet style for your kitchen and you have to live with it for the next 20 years, what are you picking?
I think you have to ask, like, what kind of house do you have? You know, the cabinet does have to match like the architecture, I think. You know, I wouldn't recommend like putting like a crazy modern, like flat, like the Italian kitchen that you saw on like my first slide, like in a traditional like carriage house or something.
Right. Stacy, what would you do?
In the house that I am now, I mean, I have shaker style. I did it 15 years ago, and it's white, and it's fine. It's great. I mean, I get a lot of compliments on my kitchen. So I think that now I might move into something a little more funky. I love like the V-groove. I love some of the materials like Donna's using. Those are fascinating to me. Some of those different kind of funkier things. So.
And Donna, do you still love your kitchen? Or
I still love my kitchen. However, I feel like the pendulum like swings, right? And so my kitchen has medium metals and bright colors. I could just as easily change my mind in a couple of years and say, I'm going to be inspired by Alina and I want all that white to be black. You know, I think that design evolves because people evolve. And I mean, I move a lot, so I can't really relate to what would I do for the rest of my life, because chances are I'm selling it and moving. So
lucky
for that question.
Well, thank you all so much for doing this. For the viewers who joined us, thank you also. I hope you got some good ideas. The Globe will send out a link of the recording in a few days. And thank you to KitchenAid for sponsoring this. When you're looking for appliances, when you're looking for KitchenAid appliances, they are sold through independent dealers, and you can find them in the link at the bottom of the chat. So thank you. And
Thank you, Marnie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
bye.